We have time for questions. Just here.
I don't think your mic is working. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. Line breeding was an excuse that breeders used for justifying inbreeding, and there is absolutely no advantage whatsoever for inbreeding or line breeding. What there is an advantage for is selecting the best animals as parents, and that has caused people to practice some inbreeding accidentally, because they had some very good dogs, and those dogs had a lot of puppies, and eventually they got mated together. The benefits were selecting the very good dogs. The inbreeding was only ever detrimental, but people thought that it was good. But what was good was selecting the very best animals as parents. Once you've selected the best animals, try and avoid as much as possible the inbreeding.
So if you're looking at a line, keep away from if you're looking at a breeder, keep away from those that line breed.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Questions here? There's one at the back.
My name is Susan, I'm actually a cat breeder. I've got two comments. First of all, I don't know what you think of breeding is, if it isn't something that's been created through inbreeding. I do, of course, agree that you always should choose the most healthy, fit animals to fit in your criteria. I'm actually the founder of Australia's only pedigree cat breed, and so you might say I'm doing something rather bound on grounds of practicality. I also know you need to have the ruthlessness to colour. You must de-sex and home and get out animals and hold lines which are not suitable. The other thing I'd like to say is, rather than advocating crossbreeding, which is just sort of going back to square one as far as I can see, plus all the protection managed to accumulate over many years, it would be a much better idea if breed organisations, Dogs Victoria and the cat bodies in Victoria, undertook a considerable amount of education of their breeders about what they're doing, and including their judges. Just because a long nose is beautiful, it doesn't mean an even longer one is better. Because the cat face is flat and short, it doesn't mean a very, very flat, short face is even better. Every standard has a stop. And
Okay.
we need to educate our breeders.
Okay.
I agree with some of what you said, especially the part about ruthlessly culling, and that just because a long face is beautiful, an even longer one is not a good thing. That's exactly what I was thinking of when I said don't select for abnormalities.
Good. Yes, and then in front.
I'm still Gobsmacked, so I'll pass to Laura.
We don't make enough noise about what we do. I go to lots of seminars and I get all profit of the government, but nobody acknowledges the thousands of dollars we spend in Australia on the certain inherited disease. The American Kennel Club, the English Kennel Club, the greatest kennel club in the world,
who is we?
And I might add,
Sorry.
with the example of how it's done.
Sorry, is there a question? This is a question time. We'll have an opportunity in the panel discussion.
Okay, we'll have a lunch. If you'd like to work understand how best to breed pedigree dogs with excellent hip and elbow scores, genetically free of defects like PRA, maybe ever have an example. We might want to talk about that.
Okay, I think there's an offer there. Let's keep the questions brief so that we can cover them as many as possible. Yeah.
There are 4 breeds that have been infused to develop this breed. To this point, I've been trying to keep the bloodline as diverse as possible. What would you consider someone doing something like I'm doing would be an acceptable inbreeding coefficient?
In most livestock, we would try and keep the rate of inbreeding, that's the increase in the inbreeding coefficient, below 1% per generation. So I'm sorry if that's a rather technical answer, but it means that if you've got a common ancestor on both sides within the first couple of generations, you should try and avoid that mating. Try and get ones where if there has to be a common ancestor, it's several generations back. Less than 1% per generation would be the normal recommendation for livestock breeding.
One last question here.
Hi, Sarah Crawford. I have a question. Are all, in research that you've done, you also looked at other behavioral characteristics of the height, size, fearfulness, and are they similarly heritable?
Sorry, I'm a little bit deaf, and
Okay. Have you looked at other behavioral characteristics
Oh, right.
besides fearfulness, and are they similarly heritable?
Yes. Fearfulness turns out to be one of the most highly heritable. It's a bit surprising because there's obviously environmental effects, but a lot of the other traits that we looked at were less heritable, and I think that just means that environmental effects like training have a bigger influence on that. For example, the guide dog trainers scored dogs for what they call dog distraction. When you've got a guide dog, you don't want it to go off and try and sniff the passing dog. And that was lowly heritable, and it's easy to imagine that it's highly dependent upon the way in which the dog has been trained as it grew up. Some of the other scores are not so heritable, and I think it's because they're just bad scores. They haven't done what Tammy did, or talked about doing, which is to show that the scoring system is actually reasonably repeatable. It gives the same answer over and over again. If the scoring system is not repeatable, then it's definitely not going to be heritable.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. And